The MK Mental Health Hour with Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support in partnership with Thomas Connolly Estate Agents and MKFM.
Just gone 7 o'clock on your Sunday evening. Hello, it's Leah with you for another Milton Keynes Mental Health Hour, talking about half term in this hour and continuing with MK's biggest hits, starting with Spiller now.
The MK Mental Health Hour in partnership with Thomas Connolly Estate Agents.
It's Spiller and Sophie Ellis Baxter Groove Jet. If this ain't love on MKFM, good evening. It's just gone 5 minutes past 7 on your Sunday. It's Leah with you for another Milton Keynes Mental Health Hour. Joined in the studio, as always, by John from Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support. Hello, John.
Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening. Lovely to have you with us, as always, for another Mental Health Hour. Before we kind of get into the hour, I know tonight we're talking about half term.
Yes.
I can't believe it's come round to that time of the year, but we're going to be talking all about that. Before we get into that, what have you guys been up to at Arthur Ellis?
Oh, we've been up to quite a bit. It's another busy week. So now we've been working quite heavily with schools. So we've got loads of inset days coming up. So in the last week or two, we've been booked onto 3 inset days. For those who don't know, we do teacher training and student training. So we train students in psychological techniques. So if they are experiencing any mental ill health or symptoms of mental ill health, they're able to use these tools to alleviate them. So we're going in training, I think, over the sessions that we've got booked, there's around 600 local teachers that we are. It might be slightly less than that. I haven't quite done the numbers, but it's around 600 local teachers that we're beginning to train in these methods so they can support themselves and be aware of it for any students and kids that are experiencing anything.
How brilliant that so many local schools in Milton Keynes are actually taking the ownership on themselves and getting that really training. Good. It's brilliant.
Because there is loads that goes on around mental health and around well-being, but it's whether it's the right stuff. And I was in a meeting earlier on this week where there was an Ofsted inspector, and it's really about the services and all working together because, like I said in a few earlier shows, we're kind of a signposting culture. Just go to your GP, you just go to the services, but they're being overrun. So if you really want some timely support, we need to learn these things directly. So that's what we do, and we're excited to be able to help teachers with it and some students as well, so it's going to be great.
Brilliant. So this evening we're talking all about kind of half term and the fact that it's looming. We think it's next Friday, isn't it, for a lot of schools that break up across Milton Keynes. So we've got Rita in the studio. Rita, good evening. Hello to you.
Hello.
So you've joined us previously for a mental health hour. So Rita, you are the lead mental health mentor at Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support, and this evening we're going to be touching on the child's perspective over the half term, as well as the parents' perspective and kind of everything in between. So we'll get into all of that after Katy Perry now. This is Last Friday Night on MKFM. Katy Perry, Last Friday Night on MKFM. This is the Milton Keynes Mental Health Hour. We do this every single Sunday. It's a bit of a safe space where we can kind of discuss a lot of different topics all about our mental health. We're joined by John from Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support here in Milton Keynes, as we are every single week. And this evening, John, we've got Rita, who is one of your lead mental health mentors.
Yes.
So we're talking this evening about half term and the kind of things that can kind of bring with it. But Rita is an absolute expert in this kind of field, isn't she?
Yeah, absolutely. So Rita joined us, it's gone really quickly, but I don't know how long ago it was.
It was in the summer, wasn't it?
Yeah, in the summer. So lucky enough to have Rita join Arthur Ellis, and she worked for around 13 years in a school, working with children on a one-to-one basis, in a group, trained in psychology, and you've worked in like a therapeutic way for like 30 years, 25 years.
Wow, 30 years, yeah.
A wealth of experience then that you've got on this topic that we're talking about this evening. Now, when we say kind of half term and the issues that this may bring, people might think, well, no, it's great. The kids look forward to the half term and it's great for the parents.
Holiday, it's a break.
Exactly, and it's all very exciting. But actually, there could be a few issues that might come along with it, aren't there?
Absolutely. Oh, you've got to remember, it's one of the longest terms. It's about 7 weeks.
Wow.
Almost. Everybody's tired. And you know, the nights are getting longer. We're going to have a time change as well in the middle of it,
right? Yeah.
And all these things contribute to sort of like, you know, people feeling a bit uncertain and maybe stressed. And there's quite a lot of uncertainty going on around in this half term. We've got Brexit, dare I say that word?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so people are worried. People are tired, and we're also counting down to Christmas, and that's an expensive time as well.
And I suppose that the thing, I don't have children myself, but from what I can understand is that children like routine, and I suppose having a half term kind of stops that routine from happening, doesn't it? And there might be lots of different things. They might be seeing their friends and not going to school. There is a change of routine which might also cause a bit of stress.
There is, and you've got to remember 7 weeks puts people into quite a good routine, and everybody gets really used to that, parents, teachers, and children as well. And then here we go, it's a week. It's kind of like a week's, you think it's a long time, but actually it isn't a long time, but it's a long time to break that routine too.
Absolutely. So there are also other kind of limitations as well. I imagine that that people might take holiday to look after children, but there might also be money that can kind of take effect as well.
There is. Everybody has an expectation of what they want to be doing during the holiday, because we're looking forward to it, aren't we? And sometimes we can't always meet those expectations, because reality is we don't always have the resources or the money or the time. And a lot of parents have to take annual leave to be off when their children are off.
And parents have different jobs, and parents have different ways in which they work, or different limitations. So children may also look at what their friends are doing or what other families are doing, and parents might look at that as well. So there's kind of the expectation versus reality of actually what the holiday is going to be like can be different for lots of different families. And if that's families within one friend group, it might not necessarily animosity, but there's just a
added pressure, isn't there?
Yeah, just
really?
an added pressure on parents performing as parents and children keeping up with their friends. So we really wanted to address those things and talk about what kind of things may come out as a result of the holiday, but also how to prepare for that, resolve it, or maybe avoid certain things that don't have that pressure in them in the first place.
Well, we're going to be looking into that a little bit further, and also looking from the child's perspective after we hear from Diana King, Shy Guy, which plays next.
The MK Mental Health Hour with Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support.
Diana King and Shy Guy on MKFM. This is the Milton Keynes Mental Health Hour with Leah. We're joined in the studio by John from Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support and Rita, who is the lead mental health mentor there. This is the half-term show because it is looming, and now we're going to be looking at the child's perspective. So Rita, we've already kind of mentioned that children will be out of routine. So is that something that we should be telling children so they're kind of aware that that's something that's going to be happening during the half term?
I think so. I think, the more you know, the more you can prepare and organise. I mean, there are some children and their temperament is that they can cope with change and they can adapt very easily. But there are a lot of children who can't. And what you'll see is sort of like a lot of maybe behavioural kind of issues, like they might get kind of ratty or irritable or cry, especially the younger ones. And, with the teenagers, you might see that kind of like, the withdrawal or the kind of like the stubbornness as well sometimes. It's all about kind of like getting used to what's happening. So changing routine can have quite an influence on them.
Definitely. And I suppose that the difference is they'll probably be around their friends and things at school, but it'd be in a different environment than they're used to. Like you say, the term that we've just been in is a very long one. So they've built up those routines and things, and they're going to be put into a totally different environment, which can affect them as well.
Yeah, and it sounds strange, really, isn't it? Being at home, being sort of like a strange environment. But you're not used to that, are you? Because you haven't been used to that for 7 weeks. That you're going to be at home. You're going to be parents are going to be at home, or someone who's going to be looking after you. You're not going to see your friends as much, and that's an important thing for children, isn't it? That socialising that they do when they're with their peers.
Definitely. And like you were saying, John, that can in itself bring some issues as well, because it can be a bit of like a keeping up with the Joneses situation where you're looking at somebody who's got a different game or a different console than you, and you're kind of, it's a bit of competition, a bit more pressure.
Absolutely. And one thing that discussing this show, Rita and I kind of identified was that there is that added social pressure of, have I got everything that my friends have got? Because it's the first half term really after starting a new year for a lot of kids, so they maybe got new friends that they haven't maybe had a chance to go to their houses or see how they live, and it might be quite different to how they live. So there's this kind of expectation, or they might be newly introduced to people who might have different things to them, and maybe they see that as a, quite a pressurized situation where I don't have what Jimmy has. Why? And it can add pressure on the child. It can add pressure on the parents. So yeah, it's quite an impactful time, really, if we really think about it.
And I suppose a different part of it, Rita, might be the impact of having split parents for children.
Absolutely. The charity Family Lives tells us that 25% of family life is single parenting.
Right.
That's a hell of a lot. And, you've got to negotiate who's going to have the children, when they're going to have the children. And sometimes that can be quite tricky for parents.
I suppose especially if they don't necessarily get on, it can be very difficult, and that can pass on to the child.
And again, it comes back to one parent might have more than the other, or different things than the other. There might be some instances where one parent thinks that a child prefers the other parent over them, and it's just how to kind of prepare for that. And I think it's important for both parents to understand that perspective, so that they can make sure that they are working together, so it's not having an impact on the child. Because in our mentoring service and the one-to-one stuff that Rita and the other mentors do, we see it quite a lot, that the parents don't necessarily realise the impact that they're having on the children because they're focused on their own relationship. So it has a massive impact, but it's not always something that's considered, I think.
Well, if this all sounds quite familiar, and you can kind of see this is going to be something that might happen to you, we're going to be discussing what you can do to try and keep in routine and measure expectations and things like that after Neo. This is Closer now on MKFM. It's Neo and Closer on MKFM. This is the Milton Keynes Mental Health Hour. Tonight we're talking all about half term, and we've heard about it from the child's perspective. And if it's all sounding quite familiar with half term kind of looming, you think that might be a similar situation in your household. It'll be interesting now to get the kind of parents' perspective on it. So I imagine it's a very, very stressful time for parents at half term. Like I said, I don't have children myself, but I imagine there's so many things to organise, loads of things to do, Rita.
There is, and I think the key is organising. The academic calendar is published well in advance, right? So you can get yourself organised and start planning ahead of yourself, right? Okay, so that it takes that pressure off, doesn't it? It gives you that leeway a little bit. Also, I think the thing is that you've got to remember is that parents who do work only have a certain amount of annual leave. So you're going to need to plan that ahead, because you're not going to be the only parent that's working in your workplace.
Yeah.
So you've got to negotiate that, haven't you, really?
Definitely. And I suppose another thing tied in with that is a lot of cost. It's very, very expensive.
Absolutely, it is. And I think, especially this half term, it's got Halloween in it. And there's going to be great expectations about, what people want to do. Everybody likes to go out trick-and-treating, and people want to dress up, and they want to go have a little party as well. So there are those expectations, but they are costly as well. And I think there's all sorts of different tips that, we can give you that might be able to help, that we'll chat about in a bit.
And I suppose tying into the planning part of it, like you were saying with planning your annual leave, because you're not just going to be the only one that wants to take time off during half term, also planning in childcare, because again, there will be a lot of people that probably want to get some childcare over those periods, and you need to kind of plan those things in as well.
I know, and I think this is a really good opportunity to use your extended family. A day with the grandparents is normally really a good one. Also, you're not the only parent in this situation. There are other parents, so you could share some of that, with your friends or maybe your neighbours that you feel comfortable with, that you can share the childcare.
I think sometimes just adults in general have this expectation of you've just got to, keep calm and carry on?
Yes.
So it's something that everyone at the school gate will be exactly in the same boat, but no one really talks about it.
Exactly.
So
it's silly, really, isn't it?
Have that chat, figure out what you're doing at half term, and to see if, you've got a couple of kids that are friends with each other. Why don't you take a day each? And that's all of a sudden 2 days. One day you've got completely free with the kids away from you, which is probably welcome in some respects. So you can actually be at work, or you can just have the day off and relax and take some time for yourself, and then you can swap that with another parent. So it's utilising what's around you and talking to see who else is in the same sort of position that you are.
And here in Milton Keynes, there's so many other great things that you can utilise, like clubs and things, aren't there?
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's loads and different free resources. So there are, we've got all of the lakes. I know that the weather's not necessarily that great, but
kids don't care, do they?
No,
adults are really fussed about the fact that it's raining and chilly, but
yeah.
kids don't care. They just want to run around and have a great time with their mates.
So we've got the lakes. A lot of the lakes have those like little bits of fitness equipment that go around with them. I know that I really enjoy going to Southsea Forest, which is only sort of a 20-minute drive away.
Yeah.
It's free. I think you've got to pay for parking, but that's about it. There's also loads of different gym groups. So going back to our fitness with Energy Fitness, they do children's classes. We know that there's an organisation called Fit MK. It's an outdoor gym at Willen Lake, and they do children's classes where they do like fitness boot camps with families in the morning, get you started for the day. So there's loads of things like that you can get involved in and do.
Absolutely. And it's just about pulling on a bit of resources around you so you don't feel the burden is entirely on you as a parent.
And be creative. There's a lot of things you can do indoors. I mean, I don't know whether you remember as a child that you'd get some blankets and make a den under the dining table.
The best thing to do.
It doesn't cost anything.
Doesn't cost anything. It's so much fun.
A little picnic under the dining table.
Exactly.
Go to one of your local supermarkets and get a load of cardboard boxes. Kids will do something with it.
So true. It's like at Christmas when you spend so much money on the presents and all they want to do is play around with the box that it comes in.
Or like the little polystyrene peanuts that
Exactly. Right. Well, we've got so many more fantastic tips from the experts at Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support. We'll continue with those after Flow Rider Good Feeling, which plays right after this.
The MK Mental Health Hour with Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support.
Flow Rider and Good Feeling on MKFM. It is the Milton Keynes Mental Health Hour for your Sunday evening. Tonight we're talking all about half term and kind of some of the troubles that it might bring with it, but also some fantastic top tips, which is what we're going to run through with you right now. So Rita, if people are listening to this thinking, I can totally relate to everything that they've gone through now, what are your top tips for kind of tackling half term?
Well, what I would say is try to keep the routine going.
Okay.
Sleeping patterns, try and keep them the same, going to bed around about the same time. Try not to have too many lay-ins. I know it's on holiday and you want to relax a little bit, but the routine is really quite important. Also, eat well, as you normally would eat. Halloween's in the middle of it, you might want a little treat, and it's not wrong to have a treat, but try not to overdo it, because again, that just really kind of like puts you out of that routine, and you want to be sticking to something that's actually quite familiar.
Right, okay, because we've already spoken about the fact that being out of routine can really affect, everything really. And one of those, I imagine, would be sleepovers and things like that, that might affect people's sleep routines. And I know you're saying about going to bed on time and things like that, but that will probably be disrupted as well.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is that, we do have this big culture about sleepovers, and it is lovely because it is nice to see your friends out of the context of school. And that is good. But we've got to remember that whatever you're doing, it's got to be safe, it's got to be supervised, and it's got to be fun, but also quite relaxing and keeping you well.
And one of the things we've spoken about as well, from the parents' perspective, is the cost side of it. And one of your top tips is about spreading out the activities kind of throughout the half term.
Yeah, I mean, what sometimes happens is that you do all the exciting stuff in the beginning and then you start relaxing, but kids being kids, they still want to do some more exciting stuff, and that could be actually a bit of a kind of pain, and it could cause kind of like disagreements and stuff. Spread it out, do some exciting stuff, do some relaxing stuff, and then do some exciting stuff again, so it is spread out
and get them really riled up. So I know that if I have a really exciting afternoon, or I'm at an event, or I went to play trampoline dodgeball once.
Oh wow.
Funnily enough, didn't go well, won't go into it, but you don't necessarily feel like you can sleep after that, because you're like, your adrenaline's going and all that sort of stuff. So having a combination of things that are exciting, things that are relaxing, and maybe not having all the exciting stuff right crammed at the beginning of the week because you're really excited to be on holiday, but just kind of spreading them out and kind of doing them in a adjacent way.
And I suppose a lot of it is about just being a bit realistic, isn't it? That you can't afford to go to a theme park every single day of the half term, and it's about measuring your own expectations as well as the child's expectations as well.
It is, absolutely. And there is a lot of, like we've just talked, there is a lot of free stuff that's going on in Milton Keynes.
Yeah. So many. And actually, if you want to check any of them out, there are so many fantastic kind of ideas over on our website, which is mkfm.com. We're going to continue with those top tips after Mojo now. This is Lady on MKFM. It's Mojo and Lady. Hear me tonight on MKFM. This is the Milton Keynes Mental Health Hour with Leah. We're talking all things half term. We've been sharing some fantastic tips from Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support. We're joined by John and Rita. So some more top tips then, Rita. One of them being do some more sharing.
Absolutely. Like we've already spoke about it, use your extended family for childcare, okay? So that's a really good sharing. And also, when you're kind of like budgeting, okay, think about sort of like being creative. So there's lots of kind of opportunities in bulk buying in advance so that you can cater for everybody that's going to be at home. Because remember, when children are at school, most children have sort of like access to a breakfast club, so you don't have to sort breakfast out. There's a lot of children on free school meals in Milton Keynes, so you don't have to sort out lunch. So that added pressure can be taken off if you just organise yourself, maybe bulk buy. And also there are sort of wonderful facilities in Milton Keynes, like the community kind of fridges and whatnot.
So there's lots of things available here in Milton Keynes. But a big part about it is being smart with your shopping, John, and maybe buying like tin food and things in bulk like Rita was just saying.
Yeah, we're talking about buying in bulk. There's community fridges which... there's one in Wolverton which basically puts out all of the food that the supermarket doesn't sell.
Right.
Which is great, just to swing by, pick up a load of loaves of bread or anything like that. You can whack them in the freezer, but then you can focus on really cheap things like just tins of tomatoes, baked beans. There's loads that you can do that these additional 2 meals don't have to have a massive impact. You can kind of be smart about it and alternate the meals and make sure that they're still a bit interesting, but that they're not going to be super costly as well.
And a lot of this stuff is about being prepared and planning ahead, isn't it? And actually that's why doing this show now is perfect. It's great time. You've still got plenty of time to do a bit of planning and get prepared with all of this stuff. Another one of your top tips is to consider how you're looking after yourself.
From a parent's perspective.
Yeah,
absolutely. So one of the things, if people are going to be a little bit pressured and stressed out, you've got the kids at home, all of that sort of stuff, it's focusing on activities that include the whole family. So looking at what they can do as a group, putting the onus on the children to make the decision on what they want to do. So we kind of spoke about, Rita, like giving the kids a budget and saying, we've got £5 to spend on Wednesday. Have a look at the different events that are going on in Milton Keynes, what you might want to do, and bring us a list of 2 or 3 things that we can decide on as a family.
And I guess that doesn't only make them more inclined to do some things that you might want them to do, but also it gives them a bit of ownership, and it gets them being a bit creative as well about how they might spend that £5.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. And it's an activity in itself that they've got to go away and research what they want to do.
Exactly. A quiet 5 minutes while they're doing that, and you can have a cup of tea and put your feet up.
Yeah, exactly. If you really wanted to, you could try and spread it out over a whole day.
Yeah.
If you wanted to, like, just go away Monday morning, start planning and come up with a weekly plan, and that is what we're going to do in the morning, and then we're just going to have a quiet chill afternoon, and then we've got all of the activities to look forward to in the week. And
you would also say to encourage older children to be a little bit more independent, Rita.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that we've got to remember with the older children, especially sort of like those year 11s who are going to be facing mock exams after half term, most of them, this is a good opportunity to actually do a bit of revision.
That's true. Very, very sensible, Rita. Very, very sensible.
But again, it's all about how you plan. So planning that in and being quite disciplined with your time, because as soon as you get into work, as soon as you get into sixth form or later on in your education, you're going to have to learn how to be a bit more disciplined with your coursework or your dissertations or anything like that. So it's a really good time to, it doesn't have to be a lot if you just make sure that the discipline is building up. So even if you do half an hour and you make sure that you sit down and you do something, it's a good start to get into the routine of doing that.
And builds life skills, definitely.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, so many fantastic tips shared. As always, we do share this in a very easily digestible, downloadable guide from the website. We're going to talk a little bit more about that so you can kind of take all these tips away with you after Bruno Mars. Now, this is 24 Karat Magic on MKFM. Bruno Mars, 24 Karat Magic on MKFM. We were loving that here in the studio. Rita, you're a big fan of that one, aren't you?
I am indeed.
Good song. Well, it's the Milton Keynes Mental Health Hour We've been talking all about half term and some of kind of the issues that may bring. We've shared some fantastic top tips. John, as always, you over at Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support provide a downloadable guide over on your website on Monday morning, so people can go on there and pick up on all those tips and take them with them and share them and everything else.
Yeah, we try and make sure that everything that we do is, from our training through to everything else, is really practical. So we're going to put a step-by-step guide onto things that you can consider on the run-up to half-term. We're also going to have a look for some resources that we can build into that to actually help you plan these things. Rather than it just being a diary, we want to be able to plan out the day, think about food shop and all of that sort of stuff, just so that there's not that added pressure, or it alleviates that pressure, which can really have a massive impact on our mental health. Absolutely.
So people can find that guide over on your website, which is...
Yes, it's www.arthurellismhs.com.
And they can also find out all the details about the work that you do in the local community as well, like your one-to-ones and things like that.
Absolutely, yeah. So we've got this system within our one-to-ones that any adult that reaches out to us, they're paid sessions, but that also pays for a child to get free support. So we're building up this system where everyone helps each other out in a way. So it's a really good system, and we're supporting quite a few adults in the community. So if people are experiencing this kind of pressure, you don't necessarily even need to know how you're feeling, but if you're just a little bit down, maybe you're a bit nervous about something that's situational that you want to have a chat with somebody about, then you can reach out to us. It's a simple form on our website that you can fill out, send it through, and we're a mental health service that has a 2-day turnaround for appointments.
Which is an amazing thing to be able to claim.
Exactly, yeah, and it's something that we're sort of building a system where we're training new mentors all the time. So we've got new mentors starting sort of quite consistently. So we're aiming to kind of retain that 2-day wait for an appointment. So if anyone is struggling, you don't have to sit on a waiting list forever. You can come and speak to us, and one of our mentors will be able to help you out.
Brilliant. So that is arthurellismhs.com for all of that. A reminder that we will be podcasting this interview as well over on our website if you would like to listen to it again or share it at mkfm.com. Do you know what we'll be discussing next Sunday, John?
Yes, it's Halloween, so we're going to be talking about
exciting.
All of the social pressures that go into that. It's the perfect time to get into really bad eating habits.
That's very true.
Which some of us are guilty of, but it's about addressing those. And even though, have a great time, especially for children, see if we can break that habit as soon as Halloween's over.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us this evening, John and Rita from Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support. And do join us next week for another Milton Keynes Mental Health Hour at 7 o'clock next Sunday.
The MK Mental Health Hour, in partnership with Thomas Connolly Estate Agents.